everyone. This is Randall Adcock, host of today's Finding Your Way program by Wayfinders Business Cooperative, based here in Edmonton, but reaching out across Western Canada. And today we have a guest speaker, Daina Benson, who's a professional organizer with 15 years of experience and proper certification. And she's going to tell us all about how to organize your home office to be more efficient, effective, simple, and productive. So I will let Daina now introduce herself and get going.
Thanks, Randall. I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'll give you a quick intro first. So, yes, thank you very much for the intro. I've been in business for over 15 years in the greater Edmonton area. I'm a trained professional organizer as well as a certified virtual organizing professional. I always have trouble with that one. So I work both in person with clients and online with clients. And those clients are your average family right to small businesses. I also work a lot with seniors and many neurodivergent clients as well. So I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. And I'm really excited to talk about productivity. I think it's something that we all want, whether it is with our businesses or just in our home and our life. The more streamlined we can have our lifestyle, the more ease that we have in our life. So when we talk about productivity, we are generally talking about efficiency, time management, that kind of thing. When you have a productivity specialist talking, that is more what they are focusing on, just streamlining systems, having very minimalist work areas, and it's about speed. But for me, I'm really looking at your space as much as I'm looking at the actual work habits and stuff like that. Because when you work from home, I know people say that you should treat it just like you're working on the job. But realistically, it isn't the same. We have different distractions. We have kids, we have our home phone, our doorbell. We have a fridge that's really handy, a TV that's really handy. There's a lot of different distractions that normally we're not worrying about. So I would rather just prepare to be distracted by these things and anticipate them so that we can deal with them a little bit better. So when we talk about efficiency, the difference between efficiency and productivity really is productivity is a measurement. It is, I'm achieving this many tasks in this amount of time, where the efficiency is looking at, our skills, the tools available to make really simple systems and processes so that we can be really productive. And a lot of different things influence efficiency. I'm going to focus on these four. So I think we've all heard, a cluttered space is a cluttered mind. That's a really common saying. It is. And I think at the same time, though, our brains all work a little bit different. And as I tell all of my clients, clutter is a perception. So what I consider cluttered versus what someone else may consider cluttered might be very different. So it's really important to just know who you are, how well you work in a space, and kind of plan for that, like making that space be as decluttered as possible, but in a way that your brain still is going to work in it. So I often, and maybe you've been guilty of this yourself, am told, I know this looks like a mess, but I know where everything is. And we do generally, the desk gets a little messy. Maybe it's your house gets a little messy, and we still kind of have an idea of it could be here, it could be there. But it is the difference of picking up something because you know exactly where it is and it taking you 1 to 10 seconds versus digging through because you know approximately where it is and it taking 30 seconds to 2 minutes. I apologize. My allergies are really fired up, so I'm a little bit croaky these days. Um, the average person spends 6.5 months of their life searching for misplaced items or lost items. So, that extra time you're looking for your keys, that extra time you're looking for a receipt for something you have to return, that kind of stuff, that all adds up over time, really affects the efficiency of a system. Also, I mean, when things are piled up like this, when you are digging out that paper, it's starting to look ratty. Maybe you've written little notes on the bottom of it. All of those things are affecting how efficient that your space is. So streamlining that area so that it's nice and clean. And I am going to talk a little more about the space specifically, but right now, having a decluttered space means that it's going to save you a lot of time. So focused work is also a measurement. It is the literal amount of minutes you are able to spend on something without interruption. So there's a lot of studies on once concentration is broken and returning to what you were doing for focused work and what that costs you. And I think the average for different things I've read is about 4 minutes. So if you look at it as, okay, I've dedicated this time, but now I've got interrupted, by the dog, or I checked a text or something, and then it takes you 4 minutes to get back in the headspace to pick up where you left off. 4 minutes, work for 10 minutes, another 4 minutes, all those 4 minute time really start to add up. So it's really important that focused work is going to be your best quality time working on a project. And so when we're talking about efficiency, we want to really maximize that focused work. So part of that is going to be the self-discipline. It is anticipating that, these distractions are going to pop up, but we're dedicated and committed to sitting in front of our desk or sitting in front of our project, like depending on whatever that is that requires the focused work, for a set amount of time. That self-discipline, it takes time. When I first worked from home, it took me a long time, a long time. I felt so distracted. I knew I had to change the laundry over. It was very easy if I did get up from my desk to just kind of get lost doing things and not make it back right away. So being disciplined is going to be very key in you being able to work from home. The time management obviously is huge, and there's two parts to the time management. There's something, called time blindness, and that is not really realizing how much time things take. So I'll give you an example. Um, Today, I knew I had this Zoom meeting to do, and I know that it's going to be about an hour. So if in my schedule I had put an hour, it would not have been enough time because really I need to get my office set up. I had to get my notes ready. I wanted to hop on the call early so that, any bugs with my presentation would be worked out. Likely it could go over a couple minutes. And then when I'm done, I'm closing down the computer and putting away my notes and everything. So it isn't an hour that I need to block off. It's more like an hour and a half that I need to block off. I have many clients that are struggling with time management, and um, you know, it's I have to get my daughter to dance class on Wednesdays, it's only 20 minutes away. And this client is allowing herself 20 minutes to get her daughter to dance, but it isn't. Everybody has to get their shoes and coats on. I have to make sure I have the dance gear. We walk to the car, we get in the car, we do up our seatbelts, we drive 20 minutes to get to dance. I have to park, unload, get there, get the dance shoes on. If we've only allowed ourselves 20 minutes, then we're always going to be late. We're never going to be managing our time. So truly understanding how much time something takes requires really looking at the prep time. And it is well worth spending a day where you are documenting minute to minute kind of what it's taking you to do things so that you have a better idea of what your time looks like and you're not experiencing this time blindness. I experience that a lot with my ADHD clients, where there is basically time is now or not now. Not now could be any time. So we really work a lot with understanding the steps that we do to accomplish something so that we understand how much time it takes. Also, I really recommend scheduling focused work time with a break. And that's also known as the Pomodoro method. It's usually a 25 minutes of focused work with a 5-minute break. But you could set up your intervals however much you like. I often, I have one here somewhere. I use this ADHD clock, they call it. It helps with that, but it's, um, when you set your time, it's very visual. So it's on your desk. You can watch so you know when that time is ending, or you can set a timer on your phone. I set timers on my phone all the time, where it's like, okay, I need to get back to what I'm doing. I want to finish cleaning my kitchen. I'm giving myself 10 minutes for that, or 10 minutes to go for a walk or whatever, return to it. So again, that's helping with the self-discipline. Breaks are very important. It's an excellent reward. However, whether it is getting up and stretch or have a drink or go for a walk, but dedicating that 20 minutes to your focused work and then having the timer indicate that, okay, now it's time to break, it really conditions you and informs some really great habits. And then anticipating distraction. So literally, we are at home, there are different distractions. And not that we don't have distractions when we're working in an office, we have coworkers and we have noise and all of those things. But if there are things that help you when you're feeling a little distracted, uh, get back to work. So maybe it's a fidgety toy, or you're a foot tapper, or you want to have water and snacks. It's knowing in advance when I feel distracted, I'm going to do A, B, or C. I'm going to squeeze the tennis ball. I'm going to have a little water, or I'm going to have some nuts or whatever that I brought to my desk. It's anticipating that it's going to happen and knowing what you're going to do. So you're not all of a sudden that 4 minutes that we lose focus turns into like 15 minutes because then we're checking our phone or something like that. That's the last thing that we want to do. So knowing that it's going to happen, you are going to get distracted sometimes, and knowing what you will do when it happens means that there's a plan. Okay, I'm feeling a little distracted. I'm going to, play with my fidget spinner. I'm going to click my pen. I'm going to take deep breaths, whatever. Having that plan already so that you are not getting up from your desk and you can keep doing focused work. So I think there's also this problem that some of us have where we're kind of firefighters and everything's on fire. So we haven't taken the time to decide this is most important, this is least important, because sometimes we just have so much going on that we just decide everything's important. And it's just really not true. And it stops us from being able to hit deadlines or do the quality of work that we want to do because we're finishing off projects that maybe don't even need to be finished off at the same time as ones that have a really tight deadline. So determining your priorities is really important. And I think I have on here, yeah, the Eisenhower decision matrix is really a helpful tool for this. So, is it urgent and important? Is it not urgent and important? Here, let's have a look here. So that we can really look at, okay, here's all the projects that are on my list right now. Yes, this needs to be at the top. Maybe it's something that, you know, really has to be done in dealt with right away, but it's really not that important. Maybe that's something another family member could take care of. Um, and also understanding when something doesn't even have to be our responsibility. We spend a lot of time complaining that we have so many things on our plate, but not taking the responsibility that we put all of those things on our plate and maybe not reevaluating whether it even needs to be there anymore. Does it even matter if I keep doing it? Could this be something someone else could do? Or is this something that needs my attention? So lifeline versus deadline. We all know what a deadline is. Everybody focuses on a deadline. Your lifeline is your start date. So when we are putting these projects that we want to get done, we're really focusing on when it needs to be done by, when we really should be also looking at when does it need to be started. Again, that's going through the prioritizing, deciding, okay, this is the deadline, using our appointment book or day planner, whatever that is, instead of just having the deadline in there, when are we starting this? And really then evaluating, taking that time to evaluate how important this is, how much time this is going to take me, how many resources, and then picking a start date that's going to work with that. Again, this is especially helpful with some of my ADHD clients because again, when your time blindness means that there is now and not now, um, deadlines really creep up on you, or if you're just kind of a natural procrastinator, all of a sudden you're at the deadline. And I know a lot of people work well under pressure, and they're just banging it out right at the end. Um, but if we want to be efficient, that means that we are picking a start date at the same time that we're picking our deadline. And it's going to accommodate the time we need. It's going to look at the other projects that we have so that we can be realistic about how much time we need. We already know what the tools are that we need and the skills and processes that we have to bring to the table with it. So the 1-3-5 rule, this is also helpful for a lot of people that are managing a few projects. So this is, we have time for one big thing, three medium things, and five small things in a day. So if you have many projects or many to-dos, whatever, however your work life looks, um, for some people, that is just a really good measure. This is what I want to accomplish every day. And those five small things, they can be really small. It can be you just had to pick up the phone to make an appointment, or you want to be able to eliminate something you have on a sticky note. And a big thing is maybe either finishing a project or taking a big bite out of a project. And again, we've already evaluated the priority. We already know what the start date and the end date is. So it's very easy then to determine whether something is a big, medium, or small item on the list. And then the leave it for later pile. Um, This is something that I use even when I'm working, just clearing out a space in someone's home. So again, I want to be dedicated to that single space and not get distracted, which means that if we're cleaning a bedroom, I've got a box there that is a leave it for later pile. It's the things that don't belong in that room that belong somewhere else. The problem is if you leave and you go put, you go put this in your coat closet, and then when you're in your coat closet, you see something else that maybe belongs somewhere. It's kind of opening a can of worms sometimes. So when you're working at your desk or in your office, if there's things that need your attention, that maybe through the Eisenhower matrix, you've determined that yes, it does need my attention, but it doesn't need it right this minute. You've made a note of it. You've got a little pile that at the end of your day, after you've, hit your goals for the day on these other projects, you can go to that pile and deal with it then. So it's not taking the time away from the space that you're working in or the project that you're working on, but you can take it out of your brain. Um, they they say that an average brain holds on to 8 things at a time, and that ninth thing knocks something else out of your brain. So maybe on a really sharp day you've got 10 things that you're really great at. Maybe on you haven't had a lot of sleep and there's only 6 things you can concentrate on. So if some of these things are we can just set aside, and it doesn't have to be taking up room, knocking out one of these 8 things out of your brain because you've captured it. You're not going to forget, but you're not going to focus on it right now. So the supportive habits are like the operating system that's just running in the background. These are the things that are habitual, that are supportive of all the different things that we're doing, but they don't change. So it doesn't matter what your project that you're working on is, these supportive habits are going to be the same no matter what. And that's because you've learned how to plan properly, you have a very good work practice, you're exercising self-care, and then there's eat the frog, which we'll get into in a minute here. So with the planning, that is the pre-planning. You already know at the start of the day exactly what your day is going to look like. And obviously, you don't know exactly what your day is going to look like. Things change. But for the most part, you know what time all your appointments are. You know when they are. You are capturing both your task schedule and your appointments. So a lot of people are using their appointment books just for appointments. I have this meeting at this time. I have this phone call at this time. Um, but the tasks you need to complete, those should also be in there. They should be in the schedule. That's how we're going to make sure we get those done. Your good work practice is that when you get there at the start of the day, you already know that you know what you're doing. So all the tools that you need are sitting there waiting for you. Before you even pull out that first project, you know that you have all the tools you need. You know what time all your appointments are, who you have to talk to, because you've done all of this planning. And you've also got a wind down practice. So that is at the end of the day, that last 15 minutes where you are reviewing your plan for the next day so that you know what you need. You are tackling that leave it for later pile. And that wind down practice is just as important as all of those other things that you're doing throughout the day. The self-care, I do like this law of diminishing returns, because it really pushes the point that after a certain amount of hours, productivity is going to decrease and then becomes a negative. And the negative is because eventually you're just going to make more mistakes. Or depending on what you do, you might get injured. That not taking breaks is not helpful for productivity. So the people that are like, I'm just going to power through and I'm going to put in this 14-hour day because I really want to knock this out, you haven't given your brain a break, just that refreshment for for healthier ideas or the stretches or the hydration and all of those things to make our brains function the best. So self-care is so essential. And when we're at home, we have way more options for self-care than maybe when you're sitting in a cubicle somewhere, where you can grab the dog and go for a walk, or you do have a fridge handy so that you can make a good meal. And while being disciplined, but you've scheduled all of those breaks. But self-care, just as important in putting out a quality product as your focus time. And then eating the frog. So this is from Mark Twain. If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat two frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So meaning don't save that big project for the end of the day. You know, get it out of the way at the beginning. And, we get this dopamine hit as we can check something off a list when you can start your day where you've just knocked off the big thing on your list. Everything else is gravy from there. Don't put it off until you've done all of these other things. You've been kind of spinning your wheels and wasting your time, and you just don't have the same energy to tackle it. Get it out of the way. And if you have two frogs, if you have two big projects, do the ugly one first, do the biggest one first, then work on the next one. We really want to break our tasks down into bites. So keeping in mind that even if something's the, a big, a big frog that you have to eat, that you've taken the time in your planning to break it down into, okay, here is the order I'm going to tackle the different aspects of this job. So I'm going to get into the workspace now where we're actually talking about the physical space now. Physical space matters just as much for productivity. And it's not just about the clutter, it's about having it set up in a way that is very comfortable. You have to be there all day. My office, this current office I'm in, it used to be chocolate brown. It was the color when I bought the house. And my desk was against a wall. It was beautiful. I had it set up beautifully. I just couldn't work in there. I hated it. I always ended up bringing my laptop and sitting at our island. And it really was because it was too dark. And you need to know who you are, what conditions you like, what makes you comfortable, so that you are happy in that space, so that your creativity is at its best, that your physical comfort is at its best. And that means really looking at what is in the workspace. Um, and comfort is different person to person. So are you comfortable sitting in a proper office chair? Do you like sitting on one of those exercise balls? Again, when you have somebody come in and set up an office for ergonomics, there's very specific things that they're looking at. But I think especially when we're at home and our distraction levels are different, we really need to look at who we are, how we're spending time in the space. Often your space is shared when you're working from home, or you might not even have an office you can close a door on. Maybe you're in the corner of a living room or something like that. So making this space work for you is going to be very unique. So it's really good to know, how am I comfortable? What clutter level am I comfortable with? So it's even my neurospicy clients, it's kind of down the middle, the ones that are completely overwhelmed with clutter, which would be myself. I just don't want to have a ton of visual clutter. I find it distracting. But equally, I have clients who it's out of sight, out of mind. So if it does get put into a binder, or you've only captured something you want to remember in a notebook, as soon as there's a cover closed on it, you will never remember. So if if you are somebody that heavily uses post-it notes or visual clues, then let's look at a way to capture those in a way that it isn't getting mixed up with other things, that you aren't trying to find a single post-it in a landscape of post-it notes, and that you have a system of going through them on a regular basis. And then even with the light. And I'll go a little more specific into these, but just as many of my clients are light sensitive as want the proper lighting. I like the nice bright lighting. Some people are very overstimulated by that. So when you're looking up anything you look up, honestly, about um, creating a workspace is going to tell you you want it very well lit, you want this kind of chair, you like all of these things. But what I'm telling you is you need to spend a lot of time in that space, potentially. You need to want to be there, which means you need to really look at what your comfort level is, and learn about yourself so that you want to be in that space. And that's going to look very different person to person. So your ergonomics, that's just the physical part. So that is having a chair that you are comfortable sitting in. It is looking at desk height. I have both a physical desk in my office. I also have this wall mounted one that collapses. It's a good height for me to do these Zooms, but it also is the right height if I need to stand, which sometimes I do. Um, we don't want to be reaching far or awkwardly for things that we need to get our hands on often. So if you need to be printing things out of a printer, if you have to access binders or whatever, you want things positioned where you can just grab them, or you need a change of habit. So you're actually getting out of your chair and going to get it and not doing these weird reachy motions, because sitting in a chair all day is very hard on your body. When I worked at a desk, my back was a million times worse than when I started doing professional organizing, which is extremely physical. But sitting, and then, the longer you sit, the worse your posture gets, where it's very hard to do that. So it really matters if you are not sitting properly, if you're reaching awkwardly, if you're turning to kind of put your arm behind you instead of physically getting up and going to get something. So really look at the ergonomics of your space to avoid injury, but also just general discomfort, because again, you have to want to be in your space. The distractions. So again, what are you going to do for the distractions and what can you do? So sometimes when you're working from home, we have a little less control over what the distractions are. So we've made a plan for it, but close the door, make sure your TV is shut off. Um, Dedicate that time, ask your family members not to disturb you. Think about what those distractions are that are at home so that you can avoid them altogether. And again, the distractions that we can avoid. Being at home, again, is different than being at an office. Your work surface really matters. So not only do we want to have it decluttered enough that we can actually work on it, um, we want to be really mindful over what deserves surface space, what can go in a drawer, what goes into a cupboard. So if it's something you're using daily, if you use your stapler daily, you want it on the surface of your desk, or pen and paper, or your laptop, whatever those tools are that you are going to use multiple times a day, then that's what deserves surface space. And sometimes this is looking at these kind of things is what's going to make it easier for you to declutter. If it's something that you use less than daily, um, then maybe that can just be in a drawer that's very accessible if you are needing fairly regular access. But if it can just go into a drawer that's handy, then that's great. If it's something that you're pulling out only weekly or less, it really doesn't need to be on your desk in the first place. Maybe that can go into a shelf or it can go into a cabinet. If it's something even less than that, does it need, depending on how big your workstation is, does it even need to be in your workstation? Or can this go into some other auxiliary storage that we have? If you're just bringing something out a couple times a year, maybe it doesn't even need to be in your workspace if you're struggling with the amount of space that you have or the amount of clutter that you have in that space. Your lighting in the quiet, I'll kind of talk about together. Again, many people are overstimulated by light or noise or both. So, if the quiet really matters to you, then maybe you need to have headphones or something to accommodate that. Maybe you do need to darken your windows and just have lamplight if that is more useful to you. Or maybe you're adding more lamps and lighting to the space to accommodate that. Maybe you need white noise. Lots of people like a TV in a background or a white noise machine or music so that they can work. Again, this is a personal experience. So I am always asking my clients those. That's what you need to ask of yourself. How do I feel most comfortable? And lots of people think they work better with music playing. And then you realize, after you get singing for a while, and then that song reminds you of the time you went to the beach with your friend, and oh, I haven't talked to them for a while. I should shoot them a quick message. Very easy to get off task. So pay attention to what distractions are pulling you away from what you're doing. And then your tools are the physical tools that you need to have handy that are really going to support, that operating system. So it's going to keep you at the desk. That means, the things that do need to be surfaced. Maybe you need a headset. Maybe a headset is going to be more useful to you so that you can have a phone conversation and take notes at the same time. Maybe it is the noise canceling headphones. If it's your laptop, making sure you have everything you need for it. The whole goal to be successful is that you are able to stay in your workspace and have that focused work. That is where the productivity comes from. That's where the efficiency comes from. So this is an organic process. While you're working, when you are noticing things that tear you away more often than they should, make those changes because, again, even when I started working from home, um, it didn't happen overnight for me. And I also had to choose to make that a work day that started at this time and ended at this time, which meant I didn't go put my laundry in during those working hours. And I didn't book personal appointments on a day that I have delegated for work. I for me to be successful, it came from those change of habits, which we all know is needs to be a repeated process. And my dedication to staying in that workspace, using the timer, and it became so easy. I just can't believe how disciplined I came to, and it just going back to the self-care, it also means you have an end time. I think that's a problem sometimes we have when we do work from home. You're getting on task and staying at your desk is one thing, but leaving and not going back to it till tomorrow is also kind of hard when you're like, oh, I could just keep working and go have supper and then go back and work another 3 hours. Um, that self-care is really important. And as we talked about earlier, it is not helpful to put in too much time with no breaks. You will start seeing lower productivity when that happens and lower quality of what you're doing. So working from home has all of these different challenges. The best thing to do is just anticipate that we are going to be distracted. It is not the same as home. You can choose to get up and get dressed up and treat it like you're going to the office, or you can go in your pajamas every day. That doesn't really matter. It's the time that you're spending on focused work and making sure that you have all the tools available to you in advance so that you can accomplish that focused work. I think I'm doing okay for time here if there are any questions. I know there's just the three of us.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I'm quite amazed at how many points you've made that address the fundamentals of space and time. I mean, how could it not be more fundamental than addressing how how we use space and time? So these are tips for, or let's say, points of high leverage, where sometimes a little difference in habit can make a huge difference in your productivity and your sense of accomplishment. So I had no
Right.
idea there's so many different points where we can make these improvements. I'd like to add too, as I guess I put that into chat, but the idea that we are creatures of habit, and so maybe the best habit we can possibly form is the habit of forming best habits, like consciously and deliberately.
Absolutely. And these points really apply to everything we're doing in our life and all the different spaces that we have in our home. I mean, we're specifically talking about our home office and our small businesses, but really, um, change of habit is the hardest part when you're becoming organized, right? So if you can make it easier first by doing that declutter, by really learning how I want to use a space. Am I a person that hangs my keys or tosses them on a table? Do I need a key rack or do I need a bowl to catch my keys? Working with how you are, um, can make the change of habit a little bit less. But at the end of the day, there is always going to be a change of habit required. And that takes time and it takes patience. I used to do meal planning for my family. In the end, I couldn't even go to the store if I hadn't made my meal plan. Like I had a whole system. It was so great. It saved me money, it saved me time, but it took so long for me to be able to just make that system work for me. It was well worth my time. So all of these change of habits, they're well worth your time, but you have to be patient with them. And you also have to look at why isn't this working for me? Am I trying to do a system that is just too complicated? Or does it not work with my family? So we have to be continually reevaluating these systems that we're trying to put in place.
It seems to me that the more we take deliberate charge of our habits, the better we get at it. So over time, it gets better or easier to form new habits. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also sometimes we're very inspired to make an entire lifestyle change, and it's requiring many change of habits. And so that's where, the prioritizing, even in just real life things, in okay, I really want to get in a habit of taking my vitamins every day. And I'm just going to work on that. And pretty soon it's very easy to make the next change of habit and the next change of habit. Doing it all at once is hard. It's hard to get used to. And then when you fail at it, it's very hard to try to do it again. So I think you should anticipate it's going to be difficult, but also none of us are going to change our entire life over the day. And that goes for your space too. Maybe you're just getting in a routine of keeping a certain area tidy, pretty soon that's just intuitive. You don't even have to think about it anymore, and you're tackling the next space. And the skills you've learned at one change of habit, are carrying over to the next one, and it becomes easier.
It seems like there's a kind of a learning curve. It's harder at first, but you should get better at it. And at some point, you probably reach your best performance in forming habits. But that is also self-discipline, isn't it?
100%. I think a lot of people assume because I'm a professional organizer that I am naturally a very organized person and always was, and that is not true. Um, I learned that I need systems in place. I need to, if I have a system, if I have a plan, I will follow it. If there isn't, I just don't. And so I had to learn about myself. I had to learn about my organizing style. I learned that if I have too many things, too many physical belongings, I'm not very good at managing them. I don't want that. So I've learned to just simplify my lifestyle. I have less clothes, so I that means I have less laundry, so I'm not falling behind in laundry. And I think um, once I learned to that I needed a system and I knew what I needed, when something's kind of falling apart, I know I just need a new system for that, and then I will follow it.
Well, I noticed in your presentation that you didn't at all seem to be prescribing a one size fits all approach. You seem to appreciate that there's a wide range of personalities and types and working styles and so on. And you've worked with neurodiverse clients as well. Do you do a kind of an assessment up front to figure out who you're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant assessment that's going on. I mean, I get a good idea, and I've been doing this for a long time, so I think I get a better grasp of what somebody needs
Right.
earlier on. But it is definitely well worth my time when I'm working for a client, just like it's well worth a client's time to understand who they are, how they operate in their space, so that when you put in a system, it really should be as intuitive as possible so that it's easy. Many clients bring me photos or Pinterest pictures that are just fabulous. And often we can do them. But I also will let them know, like, we can do this, but it will be very difficult to maintain this system. So, how much time do you want to put into maintaining how your spices are organized or how your shoes are, or, we can make it look really beautiful. But I like to manage expectations a little bit because at the end of the day, we don't want to spend all of our time just maintaining our home. We want to have downtime. Our home is our space where we're safe and we can relax. And lots of times we don't even have that opportunity because we have too many piles to deal with, too many tasks to complete. And so I spend a lot of time really understanding how my client uses their space, how many people live in their household, so that we can make sure that it works for everyone. If one person is organized and everyone else isn't, that's not very helpful either. So whether it's something that I'm coming to help you with or something you're doing yourself, it's really good just to be evaluating and not feeling bad if a system fails. If you read an article and it just gives you a really great idea, or maybe your neighbor does something and it works great, you love how it looks and it seems great. Don't be disheartened if you try to do that and it didn't work for you. It just wasn't the right style to work for you. It doesn't mean there isn't something out there that will be perfect for you.
Right. I remember a few years ago coming across some studies of, I guess it was related to time and motion and intelligence, where they tested people in a clinical setting with disruptions. They gave them a set of tasks, and they were testing their IQ at the same time somehow. And it seems like when you're disrupted frequently, you can lose something like 15. For men, it was 15 IQ points that you lose. 10
Wow.
for
That's
women, it was somewhat less, like 10 IQ points with this disruption. So, but our lives are so much more disrupted than they used to be, it seems.
yeah. And busy. I I had read this other article that said at any given time we have about 150 to-dos in our lives, tasks that need to be completed at varying size. So maybe one of your tasks is just that you have to take the garbage out later. But one of them is you have a doctor's appointment or you have to finish planting your garden or whatever. All of these just day-to-day tasks that we have so many things at any given time. And so it's not hard to believe that we get overwhelmed and that things fall through the cracks.
It,
And so prioritizing some of these things is really essential in every area of our life.
I think so many of us have just kind of drifted like a boiled frog into a world where we're getting constantly acclimatized to mental clutter. On the social media, it's misinformation, disinformation, information
Right.
overload. And now it gets easier and easier for us to be distracted. Like you were saying, you walk into the another room to get your glasses or a notepad or something, and while you're there, you say, "Oh, this has to get done." And it gets
Yeah,
easier and easier if we allow our environment to control us.
absolutely. A lot of what I experience with almost all clients as we're sorting through is this decision fatigue
Yes,
because, just a single box of items could require 25 decisions of where things are going to go. And when we already are so mentally fatigued by all this, like you said, this information overload that's going on, um, and then we're required to make decisions that shouldn't be that difficult, they have so much more weight to them. And when you're sorting out things that maybe you've put off for a long time because making the decision was difficult, it becomes this monumental thing. So, like when I'm booking, I normally book in 4 hour blocks. For me, that seems like the magic amount of time. And people will tell me, I think I can go longer than that. We could go all day. And I'll just say, let's wait and see, because I don't think most people anticipate that decision fatigue that they experience.
right.
And I think it's worse now than it used to be because we do
Yes.
have so much more going on.
And I think it is our environment has turned us, as if we are creatures of habit, we've acquired a lot of bad habits that were never deliberate. We just fell into these patterns, of constant distractions and nigglies in the back of our brains.
Right, right.
I'm going to ask Svetlana, do you have any questions or comments? I know you're in a similar world of cleaning. Do you want to add a few comments?
Yeah, I'd like to. Well, thank you so much, Diana. It actually, I thought, okay, what can I get from this? I don't know. I was curious, but I was like, I don't know if there's something helpful, but it is. I even got something for myself. Can remember right now, but it was like, well, I knew about work and taking breaks, but I heard even more today how important that is and how important self-care is. Because when I'm working from home, I can like try to go get it done while kids are at school, and just like hammer it. But I think it's still very important. The productivity, that's what I heard. Productivity goes down if we don't take breaks or if we don't take care of ourselves. And I heard that again,
Absolutely.
and it's a reminder for me. So yeah, thank you. And I find, yeah, that um, decision making, it can be so hard, so many decisions at the same time. So yeah, I can see how it can be very heavy for some people, and it's not, it's not like where to put this pan. It's more than that pan. So thanks for the
That's
reminder.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like my space cleared, not cluttered. But I find sometimes myself, maybe you can give me an advice or something. I find myself that
Yeah.
at some point, like something happens, like I'm very emotionally drained, and then I'm kind of like, just that's it, done. And then I'll pile all my bills, receipts, my articles I want to read from paper, all of it. And then well, I did it this I think Tuesday. It was a Monday, right? Because of the long weekend. I was like, okay, how about I just spend a few minutes here and put things away where they're supposed to be, and it's way easier. So I don't know, maybe I just need to take a breath when I want to pile it or something, just kind of
Yeah.
like ask myself, like,
That's
why?
you've made a really good point too, because I think sometimes we don't notice when we're hitting that overwhelm, and then that decision just becomes impossible. It's something I watch for when I'm with the client, where I see
Mhm.
that inability to make the decision, because and honestly, that's a really good indicator that you just have to walk away from it. I think we're like, no, I'm not leaving until I get this pile done. But if you hit that point where you just can't make the decision, or you're like, I'm just going to keep all of it because I can't determine importance anymore, that is exactly the time to take your eyes off it, go get a drink, set a timer so that you do come back. But you need to take the break. And we're not great at recognizing when we need a break. If we get very dedicated to completing something and you're like, no, eyes on the prize, I just want to be done. It's very easy to miss those like feelings that, okay, I really do need to stop and take my eyes off this before I start making mistakes, and that's costly to us.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have to wrap up now, but Dana, thank you very much for these very practical and actually, they could be possibly life-changing tips on how to lead the good life from your home office. How can people get in touch with you?
Definitely, you can check out my website. It's keepitneat.ca. You can find me on Instagram at neatdana, or Keep It Neat on Facebook.
All right.
And even if you ever have questions, comments, looking for resources, hit me up. I'm always happy to pass on that kind of information when I can.
All right. Okay, well, thank you very much for the great presentation and contribution to the small business community.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great to see you guys. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.